Behind the Grooves. Hello everyone and welcome to Behind the Grooves, where I, Josh Dezern, the vinyl kid of Florida, take you to the other side of the record behind the grooves. Well, here we are, June 1st, 2017. On this day 50 years ago, or should I say, it was 50 years ago today, the Beatles released quite possibly the most progressive, most recognizable, most amazing rock and roll record of all time, the legendary Sgt. Pepper's Lonely Hearts Club Band. Now, let me start out by saying that this year there was a reissue put out with it, with some unreleased takes from every song from each album, and then the addition of Strawberry Fields Forever and Penny Lane, which their late producer George Martin always pointed out that was the biggest mistake of his career, not putting those songs on the record. So, okay, I get that. You want to change what you screwed up. So, anyway, this is a stereo reissue from 2009. This is not the 50th anniversary one. I plan to get the 50th anniversary one, and I will review it as soon as I get it. But in the meantime, we're stuck with this one. So, let me start out by saying about the cover. Obviously, it's one of the most iconic album covers of all time, in my opinion. It's one of the most iconic of all time, next to The Dark Side of the Moon by Pink Floyd, which is the most worn t-shirt ever. Obviously, this cover looks expensive to have made, and it sure enough was the most expensive rock and roll album cover ever made in history. Yes, those were wax figures standing behind the Beatles, the ones in the crazy suits, not the suits and ties from the Ed Sullivan Show. Those guys were wax figures too. And if I'm not mistaken, the same wax figures still stand today in one of the many Beatle museums over in England, which I hope to visit one day. Another thing about this album cover is that it started the speculation that Paul McCartney had died in a car crash. This was one of those that really started that conspiracy theory up. Because if you look closely at the guitar here, it looks like a guitar, right? Well, look again, it does look a little bit like Paul with a question mark at the end of it, which could indicate that that's his grave. But anyway, if you want to get more into the Paul is dead conspiracy theory, which obviously I don't believe it's true, go on the internet sometime, look at that. I'm too tired to tell you. Anyway, the cover here has a lot of famous people, especially my personal favorites that I recognize: Edgar Allan Poe, famous author; Bob Dylan, songwriter. I just saw Shirley Temple right down there. And then these four people I've never heard of. On the back here, there are the lyrics to every single song on the album. This is the first, and if I'm not mistaken, the only Beatle record, that's the official Beatle record from their studio days, that even involves all the lyrics. I could be wrong, but, So, Paul McCartney is standing behind because he's dead. And yeah, that's really all I got to say about the cover. When you open it up, you get the iconic gatefold of the Beatles: Ringo, John, Paul, and George. In other words, Ringo Starr, John Lennon, Paul McCartney, George Harrison. Now, this is, of course, their most iconic record, so it came with a lot of goodies. For one thing, it came with these really cool cutouts, which obviously I don't want to cut them out because I like to archive things. It comes with a portrait of Sgt. Pepper over here, and Sgt. Pepper's mustache, and the Sgt. Pepper's Lonely Hearts Club Band logo, and then what looks like it could be a Christmas ornament of Sgt. Pepper, and then the Beatles that just says Sgt. Pepper's Band. Again, don't want to cut that out, but, it's still pretty cool to have. There also comes a little booklet with notes by Paul McCartney, signed by Paul McCartney, and when you open it up, there are notes from George Martin. How they created the record, and other people talking about stuff about the songs and how they created it and how they recorded it. And finally, here on the back is quite possibly the most useful, insert ever put inside of a record. This here is a guide to all the people on the Sgt. Pepper cover. I know you can't read it, but go online if you want to see it. I just can't tell you right now because that would take way too long to do. Now, let's get to the record. It's got this somehow iconic inner sleeve. I don't know what it is about this, but it seems to be relatively famous. Parlophone Records. This was the last Beatle record to ever be issued on Parlophone. So here's side A, the track listing. I never read you the track listing, and I'm sorry. It goes, Sgt. Pepper's Lonely Hearts Club Band, with a little help from my friends, Lucy in the Sky with Diamonds, Getting Better, Fixing a Hole, She's Leaving Home, and Being for the Benefit of Mr. Kite. And side B, so over here, and side B has Within You, Without You, When I'm 64, Lovely Rita, Good Morning, Sgt. Pepper's Lonely Hearts Club Band Reprise, and of course, A Day in the Life. This album, again, is one of the most best-selling records of all time, if, the Beatles may brag for themselves. I remember a few years ago, they were putting out some big announcement. The Beatles' Twitter and Facebook and Instagram accounts were saying, stay tuned for the biggest announcement ever. And I thought that it would be something like there would be a reissue of Sgt. Pepper, or maybe if something miracle were to occur, that Paul McCartney and Ringo Starr would tour together to celebrate the 50th anniversary of Sgt. Pepper, but obviously that would never happen these days because Paul doesn't want to tour with Ringo, although vice versa could definitely happen. Ringo wants to tour with Paul, and all that happened was it was a reissue of their one CD. But nonetheless, thank you very much for watching this album review of the most legendary rock and roll record of the 1960s. It means the world to me that you take a few moments out of your day to watch a youngster review a classic. As always, please subscribe for more Behind the Grooves. We try to release a new review every Saturday, or whatever Saturdays we want. We're almost at the end of the season, and again, happy 50th birthday to Sgt. Pepper's Lonely Hearts Club Band. This is Josh DeZern, the Vinyl Kid of Florida, signing out with peace and love, and a 2009 stereo reissue of Sgt. Pepper's Lonely Hearts Club Band by the Beatles on its 50th birthday, June 1st, 2017. Rock on, my friends, stay groovy, and happy 50th birthday, Sgt. Pepper. Here's to 50 more.